Morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. It's great to be with you. Welcome to the Greg Belfridge Show. It was a big day yesterday. We had both the president and Donald Trump on the border, and I think two really different kind of perspectives that we saw from each of them yesterday. So the president starts. He was in Brownsville, and Donald Trump then was several hundred miles away. He was in Eagle Pass, Texas. And so the president then, speaking in Brownsville, he started out, he was talking about the wildfire that we have seen that's just tearing through parts of Texas. It's gotten worse. It's destroyed more than 1 million acres, and the president then talking about that, and he said, you know, I've flown over a lot of these wildfires since I've been president. Flown over more land, burned to the ground, all the vegetation gone, more than the entire state of Maryland in square footage, he said. And then he started, of course, talking about climate change. And the president said, you know, the idea there's no such thing as climate change, I love that, man. He said, I love some of my Neanderthal friends who still think there's no climate change. This is how he began his statements yesterday. And it's all downhill from there. But here's the thing, you know, he says, you know, I love some of my Neanderthal friends. Do you notice how he does that? I love these guys. They're Neanderthals. But I love them. I love them. Oh. Here, you know, many of us, there's no denial that the climate changes. There is climate change. It's happened over the history of man. Climate change occurs, no question about it. The problem is that the Democrats, as always, want to use climate change to increase their own power. That's how they use it. They use climate change like a weapon against companies, against individuals, against the country. They use climate change as a weapon. And then when you dare stand up to speak out against that, you're a Neanderthal. You know, it's typical. It's typical of this president who wants to pretend like, oh, he's just a gentle old guy. He's out there eating ice cream, you know, having his ice cream, and just easy to get along with. And then he's out, you know, calling people Neanderthals. That's typical of this president. I'd like to say it gets better from there, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So the president then, let's get to the issue of the border, because he did. He said he blamed Republicans, congressional Republicans. The president said both houses supported this legislation until someone came along and said, don't do that. It will benefit the incumbent, talking about Trump, obviously. And he said, that's a hell of a way to do business in America for such a serious problem, he said. So the bill establishes a new border emergency authority. Now, you and I have talked about this previously. I've touched on it. And it would allow then the president to temporarily prohibit individuals from seeking asylum when daily border crossings exceed a daily average of 4,000 in any 1 week period. Are we not out in the weeds already? I mean, seriously. Close the border. He's got the power to do it today. This is such a sham. It's such an absolute sham. So then he starts talking about bipartisanship and so on, and we'll get back to more of the president's comments. So then Trump said Donald Trump was there with Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Brandon Judd. Brandon Judd is the president of the National Border Patrol Council Union. Oh, he really went off. Judd did. More on that here in a moment. He says the agents Border Patrol agents are pissed at these policies, he said. So Trump says this is a Joe Biden invasion. It's allowing thousands of people to come in from China, Iran, Yemen to Congo, Syria, and a lot of other nations. Many nations are not very friendly to us. And then he talked about the country and the Biden migrant crime, he said. And then he talked about the death of Laken Riley. She's that 22-year-old nursing student, which is just a heartbreaking story. More on her also hearing. Her funeral, by the way, is today. Laken Riley. Her funeral is today. That's a big story this morning. But Trump said, Biden will never say Laken Riley's name, but we will say it, and we will remember, he said. So the president then was in Brownsville, and among his comments, and this is the cut that you're hearing this morning from Fox News Radio. This is what the mainstream media is picking up. The president saying, I understand my predecessor is in Eagle Pass today. Here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with the issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you, in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. We can do it together. So, again, you get the many faces of Joe Biden when he speaks. One moment, he's referring to the Neanderthals when it comes to climate policy. The next, hey, we could do this together. We could work together. Don't believe any of it. It's all a sham. This guy is an absolute joke. He's got the power to close the border today. The idea that we need some bill, we've got to have, Congress do it, is nonsense. He's the chief executive of the United States. Those border patrol policies are his to change. He doesn't need legislation to do it. So, as I mentioned, Trump was joined by Brandon Judd. Brandon Judd is the National Border Patrol president. And he said, agents are mad as hell. And they're pissed, he says, over these what's going on at the border. So he said he was inviting Trump to the microphone to speak, and he said, sir, I want you to know your agents, my agents, they're mad as hell, absolutely mad that President Biden went to Brownsville, Texas, rather than going to Arizona, rather than going to San Diego, California, rather than coming to Eagle Pass, Texas, which has been the epicenter, he said. So this is Brandon Judd. And Judd said the trip then allowed Trump to see how his policies worked compared to those that have been implemented by the Biden administration. And he says the Border Patrol agents, they are pissed. Border Patrol agents are upset that we cannot get the proper policy that is necessary to protect human life, to protect American citizens, to protect the people that are crossing the border illegally. We can't do that because President Biden's policies continue to invite people to cross here. And he went on. Pretty compelling stuff from Brandon Judd. So Trump also, of course, speaking, and did you hear that now Trump is referring to California Governor Gavin Newsom as Newscomb? Newscomb? Governor Newscomb? That's Trump. I love Trump. Trump said, look at what this governor, Newscomb from California, isn't that his new name? Newscomb? What he's done to California is unbelievable. People are pouring in, think they will get medical aid, and our soldiers, our veterans, aren't being taken care of. But people that come into our country illegally are, he said. So, yeah, Governor Newscomb. Typical Trump. So Trump had a conversation with Hannity as part of his visit to the border yesterday. And he said, what's going on right now? He was talking about the border and the Democrats, and he said, it's all disinformation. Russia, 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 everything they do, the Democrats. And I guess you have to say they're masters at it. They'll say something 1,000 times. He said, the border is great, the border is closed. And they'll say it 1,000 different times, and some people are going to believe it, he said. I think that's probably the hardest thing that they've got to do because they have destroyed this border, and they're in the process of destroying our country. Trump said last night on Hannity. So I promise you some more details. Again, Laken Riley's funeral will be held today. She's the 22-year-old nursing student who was killed at Augusta University. And a lot of reaction to this illegal who is accused of killing her, is charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, hindering a 911 call, concealing the death of another. And there is, first I want to give you the statement of the White House. You know, the president is yet to have talked about Laken Riley. He has not mentioned her yet. But Karine Jean-Pierre at the Ministry of Truth has. And she said, I want to offer our condolences to the family of Laken. I mean, this is a horrific loss for any family, and obviously whoever is, boy, she uses the word obviously a lot. Oh, man, she's just not a good speaker. She said, whoever is found guilty, we need to make sure that happens. And obviously, there it is again. And obviously, we don't want to see anything like that happen again. Then she says, but, what do I say about butts? They're big and ugly. Everybody's got, you can discount anything. The word but generally is you say all these things and then you say, but, okay, forget about everything you just heard. Throw it out. Throw it out. Here's the work to make sure we're dealing with a broken immigration system. Oh, man, it just said. And so I wanted to share some of the comments of members of Congress because they immediately then responded to it. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas said the Biden White House blaming anyone else but themselves for the effects of their open border policies is insane, he said. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. I think he's got a handle on it. Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas said, under President Biden's open border policies, American lives have been lost. Laken Riley's is the latest in that tragic count. At every turn, this administration has refused to hold themselves accountable blaming everyone and everything but their own policy failures, he said. And he said with the wave of a pen, the president could take action on border security, but refuses to do so, he said. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri said it's telling that the White House can't even admit the truth. An illegal immigrant killed Laken Riley, and Joe Biden's open border is to blame, he said. It's time for the White House to take responsibility for their dangerous policies and take action before more Americans are hurt. Don't hold your breath. They won't take a responsibility. Absolutely. They just won't. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina told Sean Hannity that Riley's death was caused by the Biden administration breaking the law. And he said, if I were her family and this guy actually did it, I would sue the hell out of the federal government because the Biden administration has been breaking the law for over 2 years now when it comes to parole, he said. Then Senator Ted Cruz said they view these murders as just the price we have to pay to advance their open border agenda. Yeah, it's just incredibly sad. Other big stories this morning. The Senate passed a temporary spending measure yesterday to avoid the partial government shutdown, and conservatives in the House are not happy about it. Representative Chip Roy said it's just the usual crap. Swamp is going to swamp. Nothing's changing. We're spending more money. We're not changing the bureaucracy. We're afraid to shut down. We won't use the power of the purse, and the result is a demonstrably weaker America. And this just goes on. You got a number of others with Representative Bob Good, who responded similarly. And we'll get into that this morning, and I'll get you more details. But that's a big story. No surprises on the part of conservatives over in the House of Representatives. Among the other big stories this morning, you see that Hunter Biden then, after years of denying that Joe Biden was the big guy, he's denied it for years. He actually admitted it yesterday that he, during his, or on Wednesday rather, during his Wednesday testimony, he then admitted that Joe Biden was, now you and I have known this for how long? I mean, you and I knew this, and you knew that they were lying about it. I mean, everybody knows it who's following this story, been following the reporting on it. Everybody knew Joe Biden was the big guy, absolutely. Hunter Biden finally admitted it. Also, we were talking yesterday about Senator Mitch McConnell announcing he was stepping aside as Republican leader in the Senate. Been there for decades, longest tenure ever as a Senate leader. And there's a piece at Axios has this, that Donald Trump has been urging Senator Steve Daines of Montana to run for GOP Senate leader. And they say, and he was doing so even before Mitch McConnell announced he was stepping aside. So there's been a lot of speculation about who will replace Senator Mitch McConnell. Been a number of stories about that. In fact, it's still trending this morning. But Axios says that Trump has been urging Senator Steve Daines to run for GOP Senate leader. And then one of the other big stories completely outside politics is the charges and the courtroom testimony against the cinematographer of Rust and what happened. And then there were new courtroom testimony yesterday provided more details. The assistant director is saying that their armorer, who's facing the charges, handed the gun to Alec Baldwin before the shooting, that she had it, and in fact had handed it to Baldwin several times. So that testimony is ongoing. And that's a look at the big stories this morning.